Books have always been a source of refuge for me. When I was a kid, I would stay up really late reading under the covers with my flashlight and listening for the noise of my mom coming up the stairs so I could quick turn it off and pretend to be asleep. I was really introverted as a kid. I still am. It's true. I pretend really well. I was introverted as a kid, really inquisitive, very creative-minded, and reading offered me an escape and an alternative, a kind of sanctuary that I could retreat into, but through which I could interact with the world. A really good book gave me the opportunity to learn about people and the ways that they work from a safe distance. And when I say good book, a good book, I mean any book which we might enjoy or find value in. For me, as a young person, these included Madeline Allingle's A Wrinkle in Time, Richard Adams's Watership Down, C.S. Lewis's Narnia series, and later in high school, when I was a little more moody, Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha and Steppenwolf. These were formative works that marked my understanding, my deep understanding of the world. And when I use the term the good book, I think we all know that I would be referring to the Bible. The good book is a colloquialism that we recognize and understand without having to ask, which good book? This distinction is highly important in some circles. But I'm proposing here today, whether found in the good book or a good book, there is sacredness in the written word. Some of the practices I want to share with you today were designed by Christian monks to help them discern the sacred messages of the Bible. Some were created by Jewish rabbis to help understand and apply the Talmud's teachings. Some were formed in the imaginal spaces of mystics. They are all useful in plumbing the depths of the good books of religious life, but equally useful in shifting a good book from an entertainment or a pastime or an escape to a personally meaningful and potentially life-altering source of inspiration, strength, and hope. When my son was small, I had no idea that Harry Potter would end up playing such a large role in my life. I read these books to and with my son Sage, and we really did enjoy them together quite a lot. I remember feeling uncomfortable reading out loud to my little boy about the abuses that Harry experienced at the hands of his aunt, uncle, and cousin, the Dursleys. But the magic was super cool, and Sage loved putting on a cloak and casting spells in the backyard with wands that he found, trying to Accio things to him, or Accio. Through these playful and fanciful acts, although he and I didn't know it at the time, he was using Ignatian spiritual practice to project himself into a scene. Feeling as the characters felt, seeing what they saw, and experiencing the ups and downs of their lives as he would have lived them. This kind of imaginative play, called sacred imagination, is just one of several sacred reading practices that we can use. So I thought we might try it together here now. I'm going to invite you to relax back into your seat, close your eyes, and just imagine yourself somewhere inside this short reading. "You'll get your first sight of Hogwarts in a sec," Hagrid called over his shoulder. "Just round the bend here." There was a loud, "Oh." The narrow path had opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. I want you to ask yourself, who were you in that passage? What did you hear, see, smell, or feel as you came around that bend? What did it feel like to be that person, having those small or large experiences? We've all seen the parallels drawn between the rising fascism of our current administration and the rise of Death Eaters in the wizarding world. Many a meme has gone around the Facebook likening the sitting president with the Dark Lord, Voldemort. And in Book 4, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the story begins with the death of an innocent man. The same book ends with the death of an innocent child. As it turns out, these are not children's stories that J.K. Rowling is telling us. They are iconic stories about the struggles between good and evil, which can really be described as the struggles between love and love's absence. Some of the questions Rowling asks through her beautifully rendered characters are, how do we engage meaningfully with the world? How do we nurture our hearts while also showing up with energy for action when times call for it? What is destiny, and how do we know it when we see it? What does it mean to be a friend, to love? When our current administration was first declared victorious in the 2016 election, I was so distraught, so scared, and so upset that I myself turned to the world of fantasy to calm my own mind and give my fears a place to rest. I wanted an easy problem to solve, and I went straight to Harry Potter because I know how it ends. Love prevails. I clung to Hermione, Ron, and Harry, Hagrid, and Dumbledore, even the duplicitous Draco, with a tenacity that suggested it was a lifeline for me. I then discovered, at the suggestion of some like-minded friends, that there's a podcast out there called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, hosted and produced by two Harvard divinity students, Vanessa Zoltan and Casper Turkile. This podcast picked up where my mind really wanted to go, to deepen my understanding of the lessons in this book, the humanity of the characters, and perhaps more importantly, the humanity of characters that we come to know and despise. I've come to believe that these books have become a kind of lifeline for me because of the ways I have learned to engage with them. Harry Potter and the Sacred Text actually now has a reading group here at the church. Some of you might be familiar with it or have been attending every other week at the Market of Choice to talk about Harry and company. We talk about these books through various themes like redemption, grace, jealousy, grief. By selecting a theme, we're able to read each chapter through a different lens, allowing us to read a favorite secular work in a new, focused way. And the first part of our spiritual reading practice always begins the same. We read the text. The second part is to deepen our understanding of the text. For example, with the spiritual practice Lectio Divina, we're led from reading the words on the page to finding connections to our own lives, finding connections in other places in the book, and then considering the lesson we might take from this reading. It's a really lovely practice. An ancient monk, Guigo II, in his work Ladder of Monks, says of the Christian sacred reading practice, Lectio Divina, reading seeks for the sweetness of a blessed life. Meditation perceives it. Prayer asks for it. Contemplation tastes it. Reading, as it were, puts food whole into the mouth. Meditation chews it and breaks it up. Prayer extracts its flavor. Contemplation is the sweetness itself, which gladdens and refreshes. He goes on to say, reading works from the outside, meditation on the pith. Prayer asks for what we long for. Contemplation gives us delight in the sweetness which we have found. The ancient Jewish practice of Havruta, which means friendship or companionship, tells us that wherever there are two or more people gathered together with the Talmud, the truth lies between them. Havruta is a traditional rabbinic approach to Talmudic study where we engage in active, collaborative, intellectual, and ever-changing understanding of the lessons of the good book. The process looks like posing a question of the text and offering the answer you think best answers your own question. Then listening deeply to others as they attempt to answer this same question, giving it some nuance and perspective. Next, a secondary question is posed, taking you deeper into the meaning. Finally, you meditate upon the questions and answers offered, searching for the sod, or the secret, hidden within the reading, like gold, buried just below the surface. Depending upon the people involved in the conversation and the questions asked and the conclusions drawn, Havruta can be useful in mining and remining the same readings for ever deeper understandings. The analogy of mining does seem apt here. Through reading, rereading, engaging with, and pausing for a deeper connection to these works, any text, and using any of the practices I've discussed with you today, we are, as John Green puts it, finding leprechaun gold with the help of a niffler that was buried for me by someone I care about. I invite you to try this practice with any reading that's meaningful to you. Poetry, the Gettysburg Address, our 7 principles, or, if you're so inclined, the Harry Potter series. Let these practices strengthen your resolve to be more like Hermione, searching for truth and understanding. Let them deepen your compassion for the Voldemorts of the world, who really, as frightening as they may be, don't stand a chance without access to love. Let them motivate you to action when you discern that action is called for, and let them bring you to your peaceful, contemplative center so that you are filled with the love, compassion, and resolve you need to go out into the world and seek peace and justice. In the story of our time, my friends, love will prevail. Dumbledore tells us so.